In Lincoln, housing is considered unaffordable for 44% of people. So they're spending more than 30% of their monthly income on rent. Housing vouchers are a way to make existing housing stock affordable.
Unfortunately, too many folks are being turned away just because of the fact that they would use a housing voucher to help pay their rent. This is a really popular solution that is something that the community is looking for to help us in this moment of housing instability and housing crisis.
Educate, inform, inspire. The Dan Parsons Show, a podcast that lifts up instead of tearing down.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Dan Parsons Show. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. As we continue to highlight the fast approaching May 6th Lincoln City elections, today we are discussing a ballot issue that the Lincoln Journal-Star editorial board describes as one of Lincoln's most pressing needs, affordable housing. Here's my interview with two experts from Nebraska Appleseed. Enjoy.
The people decide. The voices impacting Lincoln. This is Election Coverage 2025 on The Dan Parsons Show.
Well, we are covering Lincoln City elections this month. And in fact, May 6th, Lincoln voters will decide a lot of things. And one of those things that they will decide is whether the city should ban housing discrimination based on a renter's or buyer's source of income. Voters will decide whether to pass an ordinance that would add source of income protection to the city's Title 11 code. And for you legal nerds out there, Title 11 code prohibits discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodation. So I've asked a couple experts to come on the show today to talk about this important issue. So it's my pleasure to welcome for the very first time to the Dan Parsons Show, Kasey Ogle, Senior Staff Attorney with Nebraska Appleseed, and Elizabeth Engman, Senior Community Organizer with Nebraska Appleseed. Welcome. I'm so glad you guys could make it.
Thanks very much for having us, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe let's start with Nebraska Appleseed. Well-known organization, been around a long time here in Nebraska, doing some really great things. So kick us off. I don't care who. Talk a little bit brag about this great organization you guys represent. What's Nebraska Appleseed for those who aren't familiar with it? Who wants to jump in?
I'll go ahead and start us off. So Nebraska Appleseed fights for justice for all Nebraskans. We do that through community organizing, legal work, and policy work in Nebraska and Lincoln, Omaha, throughout Nebraska, and at the federal level as well.
Yeah. Kasey, tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a staff attorney for Nebraska Appleseed.
Yeah, I had the great fortune and pleasure to clerk for Appleseed while I was a law student going to the University of Nebraska College of Law, and really just fell in love with the organization. It's a great place to work, doing really important work, really meaningful work. And so I was able to make my way back after graduation. I spent a year clerking for Justice Stacey on the Nebraska Supreme Court before I was able to come back and in this role that I'm in now as a staff attorney in our economic justice program, focusing on housing issues.
Wonderful. Hey, by the way, plug for the University of Nebraska College of Law. Your dean, Dean Moberly, has been a guest here on the show. In fact, he was just last week or week before. So anyway,
I saw him TikTok. It was wonderful to see him.
Yeah. He's very intelligent, very passionate about, obviously, the law. And we're fortunate to have him on once in a while. Okay, Elizabeth, how did you come to Nebraska Appleseed? And tell us a little bit about your role. What do you do for Nebraska Appleseed?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Chicago, actually. Moved here in 2020 with my partner. I've been doing community organizing work for a long time, mostly unpaid or very underpaid. And when we moved here, I learned of Nebraska Appleseed. Lots of people told me about it. I looked into it and kept an eye on the job listings and found this one, and I've loved it ever since. It's, as Kasey said, a really wonderful place to work. I love getting to work with Kasey and her policy wonk knowledge, and being able to focus personally on the community relationships, talking with our partners and individuals, and helping people share their stories.
Oh, that's great. Well, I know there's a lot of respect in the community across the state for what you guys do. So thank you for that. Well, and hey, by the way, congratulations. Lincoln Journal-Star just last week, editorial board endorsed this measure that we'll get to vote on May 6th that we're going to chat about today. So here's what the Lincoln Journal-Star editorial board said about this issue. They said, put simply, the question of whether to ban source of income discrimination is clearly defined and should be approved by voters. So that's a nice get. Congratulations. So let's start this off. How did this process come about that this measure is on our ballot for May 6th? Maybe just give us the short version of that process.
Yeah, I can start with that. This is an issue that we've been working on at Nebraska Appleseed for a long time, in partnership with our with other housing advocates, and this has been an issue that arose from conversations with community members who had housing vouchers or other lawful forms of income that were being turned away, just because of that source of income, because of the type of income that it was. And so we knew that we needed to do something about it, and looked into it and saw this solution that had been implemented really all over the country in different forms, and knew that it would be a good solution and proven solution for Lincoln. So we've been working on it for a long time, talking with city council members, trying to get this issue raised, and unfortunately didn't really see any action there, and knew that this was such an important and pressing issue that is supported by the community. And I think that's what the Journal-Star's endorsement shows, that this is a really popular solution that is something that the community is looking for to help us in this moment of housing instability and sort of housing crisis.
So there was a process to collect signatures, right? To get this issue on the ballot. And I know thousands and thousands, and maybe give us the statistics, but a lot of people showed that they cared about this issue for simply, or at least they wanted it to be either approved by the city council, or in this case, by the voters. And so I know there was a lot of work involved in that. Elizabeth, can you maybe talk a little bit about that process?
Yes, absolutely. So as Kasey said, we've been working on this for a long time, and with a lot of partners. We have a coalition of about 20-some organizations from across Lincoln, as well as many individuals. So when we launched our signature collection campaign halfway through December of last year, we had a lot of people ready to go that had been waiting years for this moment, and we're very excited to get out and collect signatures. People took petitions to holiday parties, New Year's Eve parties, and throughout January, collecting signatures in the very cold weather. So we had about 6 weeks. I don't remember the exact number. Kasey might have that, but we far exceeded what was required in order to qualify for the ballot.
Yeah. Let's talk about the problem. Let's talk about the problem, and maybe feel free to give examples, but I don't think a lot of people maybe in our day-to-day lives understand how difficult the housing situation can be for a lot of people in this community. We're a growing city. We're blessed with a lot of wealth, and a lot of amenities. But there's still a lot of people in this community who struggle with just the day-to-day stuff. And one of those being just to afford a place to live. And so maybe just one or both of you describe what the problem is that this solution will solve.
Yeah, I can talk maybe a bit about it first, and then maybe Elizabeth, if you have maybe examples in mind or stories that we've heard. Yeah, so the problem really is that folks are being turned away, unfortunately, because of the way that they would pay their rent. We see it a lot in particular with housing choice vouchers through the Housing Authority, the Lincoln Housing Authority. The federal government gives money to the Housing Authority for these housing choice vouchers, these Section 8 vouchers that are meant to support low-income folks as they support them so that they can be in the private rental market and funnel that money into the private rental market. Unfortunately, too many folks are being turned away just because of the fact that they would use a housing voucher to help pay their rent. And we can see this sort of all over. It's not a secret. If you look for rentals, you can go to Craigslist and look for rentals, and there will be advertisements that say, we don't accept housing, we don't accept Section 8, or things like that. It's very open. And so those forms of income are being turned away, and that makes it really difficult for folks to find a place that will accept the voucher. That often means, or too often means, that folks are having to return their voucher. When you get it, you have a certain amount of time to find someone who will rent to you and accept that voucher. And if you can't find some place that will accept it, you won't be able to use it. It will go to the next person in line, because not everyone who qualifies for a voucher is able to get a voucher. There's not enough money to support that many folks. And so about a third of people are losing their vouchers, having to return it, in part because of this issue, because they can't find some place that will rent to them.
Wow. A third. Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Elizabeth, maybe if you have some examples of folks that you can tell us about.
Yeah. And also just wanted to add, in Lincoln, housing is considered unaffordable for 44% of people. So they're spending more than 30% of their monthly income on rent, which makes it less likely they'll be able to cover other bills. So we really do have a problem of affordable housing in Lincoln. And housing vouchers are a way to make existing housing stock affordable for lower income neighbors here in Lincoln. So it's a really important tool in our housing ecosystem. You know, it's one of many tools we have. Of course, we need more affordable housing built, but this is an important aspect of it as well. I think Kasey touched on like the general problem quite a bit. A few anecdotes I can share. I've heard many through the years. One individual I know had to call 200 different landlords. They were able to tour 3 different places. 2 of them were terrible, in terrible shape, and they were thankfully able to find one to live in, which is not the story I hear from most folks. Another individual that's been a really fierce advocate for this shared that she'd found a place that worked for her really well, her and her kids. But unfortunately, the landlord told her he was going to start using the property for personal, for family things, and he wasn't going to take her voucher anymore. So she had to leave, and ultimately wasn't able to find adequate housing. She and her kids were homeless for many months before they eventually found something and worked through the system in order to find a place. They can't use their voucher. They can't use the voucher anymore because of all the trouble they went through, and also just sort of giving up, you know, when they had so few quality options of places that accepted housing vouchers. So, it really takes away people's choice too. So even for those folks who are able to find a place, they don't have a choice. They can't stay close to their children's school. They can't be in a community with grocery stores that align with their culture. They can't be close to family. So it brings up a lot of issues. And with other cities and states that have passed this, it's cut that voucher failure rate in half. So instead of just 1 out of 3 being unable to use it, it changes to 1 out of 6. So it quite significantly improves the likelihood that people can use their voucher.
This seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, it's one thing. Thank you for sharing those stories. I mean, it's one thing for those folks who find themselves in need to be humble enough to go ask for help and actually get the voucher to begin with. I can understand how difficult that process must be. And then you get it, and then you can't find anybody that damn well can honor it or is willing to honor it. And so that, just adds to that, it's cruel. And so, yeah, again, we're an affluent city. Most of us are ambivalent or at least unaware of the challenges that a lot of people have for common things that we take for granted, most of us. And so, yeah. Let's see what I haven't asked yet. So if this passes, what do you expect to happen with those who have had trouble accessing affordable housing in Lincoln? What are the positive? Maybe you've kind of touched on it already, but what are the outcomes that you see happening for folks that need this help?
So
Yeah, well, sorry, you go,
thanks,
Elizabeth.
Kasey. So
Yeah.
that success rate is improved significantly, as I said before. That is a huge element. We've seen that in many cities and states across the country. Many cities with very similar economies of similar sizes as Lincoln. So we do expect that same outcome to happen in Lincoln, and that's without other negative impacts on the rental market or without any additional concerns over property damage. The housing ecosystem in that way stays the same, but people with housing vouchers can use them. Another problem with housing voucher discrimination, source of income discrimination, is a byproduct of it is increased segregation. So there's landlords in Lincoln that will have properties in more white neighborhoods and then properties in more diverse neighborhoods, and they will only accept vouchers in those more diverse neighborhoods, which also, just because of the history of redlining, those neighborhoods are also very low income. They're more crowded, they're underserved in a lot of ways. The properties aren't always as well kept. So this further contributes to racial segregation in the city when, people are continued to be funneled into those neighborhoods that were redlined many decades ago. So that's another really positive income we see, as well as we hear a lot from refugee and immigrants that, they want to be somewhere close to their community, close to people that have that shared experience, close to grocery stores and food that they're familiar with. And that is also really difficult for people. So we hope to see an improvement there. Lincoln really values being a welcoming community. That's one thing I love about it here, and we can continue to be more welcoming.
Yeah. Kasey, anything else to add on that topic?
I think that covers it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't expect you to be an advocate for people who may be opposing this, but my limited research on this issue and this wonderful conversation we're having here today, I'm having a hard time understanding why anybody is going to be voting against this. But what are some of is there organized opposition? If there is, I haven't seen any. And B, maybe how do landlords feel about this? How do people who build homes? How do other people in the community feel about this issue? And is there Is there any opposition?
It's a great question, Dan. We have not seen much organized opposition to this particular effort. We do know that landlords oppose it, and when a bill to do the same thing in the legislature has been introduced, we've seen landlords come out and oppose that bill. But for our ballot initiative, we've not seen a lot of organized opposition. Again, I think part of that is that we know this is an issue that's supported, a solution that's community supported and community desired. So I think that's another byproduct of the support that we see for this policy in the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do have 3 landlords on our coalition, actually.
Nice.
So I think when you look at sort of like the bigger groups that aren't quite as personal, and not everyone in that group might align, is where we're seeing some of the opposition. But especially when we're talking one-on-one with people that own properties, people will tell us their voucher tenants are great, that, they get paid rent on time consistently, sometimes even early. And they also have support with the caseworkers at either the housing authority or the nonprofit agencies that provide it. So for many people, they really see it as a benefit. And it also, they have an inspection of the unit, and we've heard from some, the inspection helps them improve their property so that they can be up to code, and find that to be a really great benefit of working with the program as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What have I not asked that you'd like to talk about?
I love our coalition, so I'm going to give some shout outs to some of our folks.
Please.
The Asian Center, which is a great community center in town that helps immigrants and refugees from all countries get settled and feel welcome in Lincoln. They also have a lot of cultural events, but they help people with vouchers quite frequently. They've raised this issue, as have other coalition or other cultural centers in Lincoln. So if you're unfamiliar with them, check them out. They're a great organization in general.
Yes, I would encourage our audience to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I am familiar with it. My daughter used to do some work with them when she was here in town. And so, great organization.
Yeah. We also have the Clinton Neighborhood Organization, which has been a great partner on this issue for a long time. We love having a neighborhood organization as part of the coalition. Civic Nebraska is a longtime partner of ours as well. That's part of the coalition. And League of Women Voters. So really quite a diverse group that have experienced and seen this issue in different ways and care about it for a variety of reasons. We all know housing is the basic need for people to have in order to survive and thrive. And so it's an issue that impacts so many of us care about. And also shout out to the folks on our coalition that have been impacted by this issue. And, some have to fear retaliation. They're worried if their landlord sees they're advocating for this issue, they could be kicked out of their apartment. And some of them are still like, this was so terrible to go through, and I don't want anyone to have to go through this again. I want to stand up for those people that are coming behind me. And they're just some really amazing people.
Yeah. Okay. How can people, in addition to voting on May 6th, and let's hope we get a little bit better turnout than we got in the primary. In addition to voting, how can people get involved? What do you need? What could be helpful to you?
So we have lots of information on that on our website, fairhousinglnk.org. So we have information on there about how you can volunteer. We've been spending a lot of time knocking on doors and talking to our neighbors, which is a really lovely time. We consistently hear from people that, they've heard about this, they're excited to vote yes on this. We've probably made contact with around 800 folks at this point. So if you'd like to be part of that, we have information on how to sign up for a shift there. We also welcome donations. There's information about that on our website as well. And I'm sure I'm forgetting something. So Kasey, if you want to plug in there.
We have yard signs. If you're interested in getting a yard sign to help support the issue and grow our awareness of this being on the ballot on May 6th, we have yard signs, and you can reach out to us to get one of those. I think information on that is on our website as well.
Very good. Yeah. I was helped with a fundraiser you had recently at Ray Gun T-shirts, downtown Lincoln, our friends at Ray Gun. Well, I thank you both. I thank you for your work. I thank you for your knowledge. And I thank you for coming on the show today and help our audience understand this issue a little bit better. So we'll certainly do our part to get the word out, and we'll be watching on May 6th. So thank you, Kasey. Thank you, Elizabeth. And I hope to see you both again out in the community again soon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks to Kasey and Elizabeth from Nebraska Appleseed for joining us today. I hope all of you will continue to educate yourselves on the candidates and issues that will be decided in next Tuesday's Lincoln City election. You can find all of my interviews with the candidates on our website, thedanparsonsshow.com. Hey, my thanks to Chase Porter, who produced this episode, Penology Tech Solutions for their technical help and equipment, Kim Remington, Parsons Public Relations Director of Operations, and most importantly, thanks to each of you for listening. That's the show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.